Hi, this is John Scabaris, here with this week's Something to Think About, where we take a few minutes each week to talk about the real estate market, conditions in the Chicagoland area, as well as strategy for both buyers and sellers. Today we're going to talk about as-is contracts. I am here at 345 West Fullerton Parkway, Unit 2505 in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood. As always, I'll make sure to have the listing link in the notes and comments below. As-is is a term that you will hear often as you're moving through the process, especially in a seller-dominated market. It's a tool that buyers will often use to help their offer stand out in a competitive situation when there are multiple offers on the table. The definition of as-is is that the seller makes no representations, warranties, or guarantees about the condition of the property, and that the buyer is willing to accept it as such and move forward. The reality of the situation is a little bit nuanced, though. So every buyer, regardless of as-is or not, will have the opportunity to do an inspection of the property prior to moving forward through the attorney review period. At that point, that buyer can then make the decision if they're willing to move forward given the condition in the inspection report on the as-is contract, or if they would like to back out of the contract at no penalty because it doesn't meet their standards. When we meet to discuss listing your property, we're going to talk about this strategy and make sure that we know what to expect up front so that if it does occur, we already have a plan in place. Typically what that plan is this: if we have multiple offers, we let that buyer go, we reach out to the other offers to see who's ready to go next. The other scenario is that everything's fine and that we don't have multiple offers, and that we can then discuss the idea of potentially offering a small credit to whatever that condition was that didn't meet the standards of the buyer. Even though it's an as-is contract, we can still do that if it's able to keep the buyer in play. So what we'll do is we'll have our attorney ask the buyer's attorney what are those conditions that have made them decide to back out. If they are willing to negotiate and discuss those things further, they will then tell us what they are and we can offer some credits. The other thing that I get asked a lot is, should we list the property as is up front? Is that something we want to do in the initial listing to put it out there on day one? This is an as-is property. A couple of reasons that somebody might want to do that. They need to maximize their cash so that their purchase can happen, or they just don't want to deal with repairs and credits and other things like that. Typically, I recommend not doing that because putting it out there up front that the property is as is can oftentimes stigmatize the property, and buyers come into it with a different perception than if it wasn't listed as such. The other situation is that on an as-is contract, typically they expect to see lower price points because they don't feel they're getting the same value. There are always scenarios where as-is may make sense on a listing. It's not always the first thing that we want to decide, though. So what we'll do is when we do the initial walkthroughs, when we're talking about prepping the property for market, we're going to try to gauge what the situation is and talk about if listing it as is fits the needs of the sellers at that time. Thanks for joining me this week. As always, my contact information is below. If you want to have conversations, more detail about the as-is contracts, or other questions about real estate and the real estate market in the Chicagoland area, feel free to give me a call. Look forward to speaking.